that we'll be building the dashboard around. Hopefully after that, participants can, you can follow along and have a go in your own time with the data if you're inclined to. A little bit about me. I come from an automation background. Started my career automating reports in Excel and Microsoft Access databases. Then I moved on to SharePoint when SharePoint sort of arrived around the mid-noughties. Was it about 2005 to 2007? Don't know. Started having a play about with SharePoint and building InfoPath forms and things like that. And then I started to get a little bit more into the Power Platform as InfoPath was phased out. I was a bit gutted when InfoPath was being phased out, when I heard it was going to be phased out, because it was like my tool of choice and I was doing some really fancy stuff with it. And then Power Apps came along, so I sort of had a go with Power Apps and started developing what I would have developed in InfoPath in Power Apps. I then started looking at Power BI. Sorry, I did look at Power BI before I started looking at Power Apps, but I was building quite a few complex dashboards in Excel, using lots and lots of complex formulas, lots of VBA code. And to be honest, they were pretty good dashboards, actually. I was quite proud of them. They were fully scalable to data, and they were really useful dashboards. It got me into some sort of background software in Excel called Power Query, which is used for crunching your data and preparing your data. So I used that with the dashboards I was building in Excel. I then started to sort of move on to investigating Power BI and started having a play about with Power BI. And I really sort of quickly realised the huge benefits it has over Excel for sort of dashboarding and data prep and, slicing the information and things like that. So what I started to do is I started to move some of these complex dashboards that I built in Excel into Power BI, and it sort of went from there. I started Power BI for a bit, started building some Power Apps, got into Power Apps for about 3 years, loved it, built some nice apps. So I was building some nice applications to get information into SharePoint, and then I could build some dashboards to get my KPIs out. It was really good. My role sort of took me more down the Power Apps route. So I was doing more Power Apps than Power BI. Anyway, my current role, about halfway through a recent project, there was a requirement to do some reporting. We were building an app to collect information. It was fishing vessel information. So we were collecting that information, and it was collecting it okay, but we weren't really presenting it okay. It was going into Dataverse, and Dataverse was sort of, we were exporting the information in sort of a relational fashion, and the inspectors wanted something a little bit more visual. So I sort of thought, okay, great, I'll get reacquainted with Power BI. I was never a real expert in Power BI, but I could do some okay stuff and I could get by. So I started back to basics and started learning the whole process again and making some really good notes. So that's what I want to talk through over these two coming sessions. It's sort of my journey of reacquainting myself with Power BI. A little bit more about me. Got a few hobbies. I like fell running. That's like mountain racing. We've got a nice little active community in Lancashire where we do a lot of races, and it's quite a small community, but it's really friendly. Like cycling, travelling. I like walking in the Lake District in Cumbria. That was me yesterday at about 9 a.m. on the old man of Coniston. I was absolutely freezing, but we set off for the lakes dead early and got up there for a good walk. Okay, onto the session. What can we expect from these sessions? Okay, we're going to be building a dashboard from the ground up. It's this dashboard in the top right hand corner. Today, in today's session, I'm gonna open up the dashboard, the completed dashboard in Power BI. We'll have a look at what we're going to be building. The majority of it, like I say, will be built in the next session. We'll be doing a lot of data prep in this session, but we will try and get some visuals on there, and you can see how the efforts of our data preparation have sort of can be brought to life if you really put the effort in with your data prep. We're going to have a look at the Excel sheets. It's important to understand your data. We've got 2 data sets that we're going to look at. Sorry, this dashboard, it's a highways incident dashboard in the UK. It monitors road traffic incidents by location, by severity, and by police force as well. So we'll be building a nice dashboard that relates police force information with road traffic incidents by date and by severity. So it's quite a simple dashboard, but it looks quite good. I quite like it, and it's very similar to the one that I did in work for the fishing vessel information. When we pull the Excel information in, we'll be using a tool called Power Query. It's a built-in tool in Power BI. It's used for optimizing raw data and preparing it for reporting. You can do things like you can get rid of unwanted columns that you might not want. The raw data might be quite wide. You might have quite a few fields that you don't need. You can filter the data down. You might not need the whole data set. You might only need certain records. It's a really good tool for optimizing the raw data and pulling it into Power BI. And because the smaller the data amount, the size of the data that you pull in, the number of, if you've got quite a few less columns than the actual raw data and a few less rows, it makes your data model run a lot more efficiently. So we'll be having a look at Power Query. We'll be having a look at the data model and how the tables relate. We're going to have a main table and we're going to have filter tables, but I'll talk about that when we come to it. And like I said, we won't be building this in this session. This is next week, but we'll certainly get the map on there and we'll get some filters going so you can see how everything's related. Okay, I'm going to switch over to Power BI now and we'll have a quick walkthrough of the dashboard. Just bear with me. Yep. Let me know if you can see the Power BI dashboard. Yep. Good stuff. Okay. So, yeah, here's the dashboard that we're going to be building. Like I said, it's road incident information. As you can see, we've got a map here. Maps need longitude and latitude. The data set that I've found has got that information, so it's perfect to get a nice map visual on there. This is sort of this maps the whole of the UK, but it can be filtered down to police forces, and I've also sort of categorized this by severity as well. As you can see, there's not many serious incidents. The majority of incidents are slight. Next, we've got this donut chart. This shows the number of incidents by severity group. We'll be building that. We've got the number of incidents by date here. We've built a filter on days of the week as well. So we've got that in here. We've also got a matrix table showing the number of incidents by police constabulary, and I've also put the dates in there of incidents as well. So that's a nice matrix table. Everything that you can see on the dashboard really sort of works for the data that we've got. In the top right hand corner here, we've got a card showing a count of the number of incidents. This is created using something called measures, which we'll be talking about. Measures are created in something called DAX formulas. A bit like Excel, Power BI has a built-in formula language to help developers build some really complex formulas. That language is called DAX. It stands for Data Analysis Expressions, and it's a really powerful tool in Power BI. Measures are virtual calculations. If we apply some filters, as you can see, the measure changes as the data changes, and measures are really powerful. Okay, that's measures. As you noticed there, when I clicked on serious accidents, all of the other metrics updated. The map updated, the number of incidents by date, the number of incidents by day, and this matrix table updated. If I was to click on a certain day and release the police force, as you can see for Saturday, we've got this number of severe incidents. These are called interactions. I don't like the interaction we've got on there. It's called a highlight interaction. We'll be working with interactions, but basically what they are is when you click a visual, the rest of the visuals will filter down, and if you hold down control, the others will filter down as well. So we'll be looking at interactions as well, how everything interacts with each other. I've got a pop-out menu here for filters. Filters in Power BI are called slicers, and what we've done here, we've got the three key fields that we relate to the main information. We've got the police force, the severity, and the weekday, and I've put them on a nice pop-out panel here. Some dashboards, you see them at the top of the page here, but you know, if the client comes back and says, hey, we need more filters, this area would be getting quite congested. So I've put them on a nice pop-out panel here. This is built using something called bookmarks. They're really, really powerful for actually taking a screenshot of your data as it is. And we'll be looking at bookmarks in the next sessions as well, in the next session. Okay, we've also got a little button here. I'm going to pop a filter on. Bing, bing. We've got filters on. You could have sort of 10, 15 filters on a dashboard, and you might return to the dashboard and think, crikey, the information's a bit wrong here. What's going on? And you might open your filter panel and you might think, I'm not sure what filters are on. So what we've got here is a release button, and that takes the dashboard back to with all the filters switched off. And again, that's using bookmarks. We've saved a picture of the screen, if you will. So that's been done using bookmarks as well. Okay. I'm going to talk about the data that we're going to be bringing in. Is there any questions so far? See, we've got quite a few more people on now. Okay, no questions. Okay then. Right, we need to get the data into Power BI, and the two data sets that I'm going to be using are, like I say, they're incident data. I've downloaded them from Highways England's website. One is a CSV file and the other is an XLS file. Power BI can connect to many data sources. Doesn't always have to be Excel. You can connect to Dataverse. That's what we've connected to in the project that we've been working on. I'll tell you a little bit of a problem we have with Dataverse when we come to connect. You can connect to SharePoint, SQL Server. You can pull information from the web. Lots and lots of data sources you can be connected to through Power BI. Okay, so we've got the sheet on the left. I downloaded two sheets from Highways England. It's the year 2018. It's information from 2018. It's a little bit dated. We've got this main information sheet here. It has about 120,000 records. And this is what we call the fact table. Looking at the data, it doesn't seem very descriptive. And this is how the data should be structured in a fact table. We've got on the right here, we've got a data guide table. And this data guide table will create dimensions from to connect and relate the data for our slices. So this table on the right here will be our dimension table. These will be our slices, and it will slice the information in the main data table. Okay, as you can see, the police force here is not very descriptive. We've got a series of ones. This is sort of database normalization. Everybody probably knows this anyway, but I'm going to go through it. So as you can see, for police force, we've got a series of ones. that represents the Metropolitan Police. Further down, we'll have some twos. We've got different forces. So we've got each police force can be identified in the main table, in the main fact table, by a number, which we link to the dimension table. If we were to write Metropolitan Police in each cell in this table, it would become really bloated. There'd be a lot of information, and what would happen if the Metropolitan Police decided to change the name? You'd have to go into each sort of instance that we pulled into Power BI and do an update on the name. Whereas if we related it, if number one relates to the Metropolitan Police and they change the name to Met Police, all you have to do is update this dimension table, and the rest will filter through it. We'll identify it through that number. Hope that explains it okay for you. Looking at the fact table, before you pull any information into Power BI, it's pretty useful to sort of have a look at the data, look at what you've got, and think about what you're going to use. We know that we want to build a nice map, so we're going to use longitude and latitude. The particular map that we're using in Power BI, the visualization that we're going to use, uses longitude and latitude. In this format, it doesn't use eastern and northern, so I know that when I come to pull my information in, I'm not really going to need eastern and northern. I'm going to be focusing on long and lat. We're going to build a nice slicer for police force. We're going to build a slicer for severity, severity of the incident, which we can find a little bit further down this table. Day of the week and date, and time of incident. Date's important because we can build our date table, and we can categorize the information by date, and we can build some filters on date. I think that's enough about the data model. I just wanted to emphasize how important it is that we sort of understand how everything's related there. Okay, any questions so far? No. Okay, I'm going to switch across to Power BI and create a new report now. We're going to pull those two files into Power BI now. So I'm going to start a new report. Come on. Okay, can everybody see that? I'm working in something called Power BI Desktop here. Power BI Desktop is where you build you sort of pull your information into Power BI, you build your visualizations, you set up your filters, you optimize your data, you build your relational data model, and then you publish it to Power BI Service, which is an online service where you share the reports. So what we're working in here is Power BI Desktop. It's free to download. Paddy's going to post the link into the chat where you can download it. I'm sure most of you've probably got your hands on this anyway. So when you first open Power BI Desktop, you're always faced with a blank canvas. It can be difficult to know where to start. Instinctively, you go to Get Data. I always prefer to go to Transform Data and click that. This takes you directly through to the query editor. I mentioned Power Query, and it's an absolute must for sort of data preparation in Power BI. It allows you to transform your data from its rawest form into an optimized shape for Power BI. So, okay, let's look at some of the key features of Power BI. Power Query, as we sort of pull our data in and prepare our data for the relational model and optimize it. It's really important to get the data model correct in Power Query. We'll see why once we optimize the data and start building the relationships, and we can see how everything's linked. Every time you pull in data into Power BI, the query editor always opens. So yeah, you're always going to use the Power Query editor. It's a must. Okay, I'm going to click New Source. As you can see, you can bring data in from lots of places. I'm going to click CSV and I'm going to bring the main fact table in now. I've got this set up on my desktop. If you were to share this report and your data source had come from your desktop, users wouldn't be able to see the data. So not great practice pulling it in from your desktop. It's probably better to put it on a shared drive or a SharePoint document library. So I'm just going to pull this in. This is the fact table. This is the main data table. And at this point, it's only taking a screenshot of what we're going to be pulling in. So not much memory is taken up at this point. What we do is we clean up this screenshot, we get the fields that we need, and then we commit the data, and that's when it's pulled into the model. So I'm going to click OK here. It brings the snapshot of the CSV file in, and we can see all of the columns contained in the CSV file. We've had a little look at what fields we're thinking about using for our map. We've had a little look at what fields are going to be related. We know that police forces, severity, number of it. We're not using number of vehicles, the date, the day of the week, and we're going to relate those to the other table. So what I'm going to do is I have a 4-step process in Power Query. First, to get rid of the unwanted columns that I don't need. Then I look at the names and I get the names correct. Next, I look at the data type and I get the data type correct. And then I have one last check on dates, because date fields can be a bit of a funny one in if you don't pull them in correctly in your data model. So first step of the 4-step process is to get rid of what we don't need. So we know that it's all 2018 data. We don't need this field. So I've got that selected. I'm going to right click and remove. When I remove this, you'll see that an applied step is added here, and this grows as you go through the process. This means that you can go back to previous steps and maybe delete them or get rid of them if you wanted to keep a row or a column, for example. So I've removed accident year. I can hold down Control click, and I can start to think about, okay, we don't need Eastons and Northings. We want long and lap for our map. We need police force. We need severity. We don't need number of vehicles. And I've got Control held down, and I've selected number of vehicles, and I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to click remove columns. So they have gone now. They've not gone. We can still go back and get them back if need be, but we've took them out with that step. As I mentioned, we know what fields we want to keep. This data set's got 30 columns, and we actually know what we want to keep. So we know that we want longitude and lat, we want police force, we want severity, we want date, we want day of the week, and we want time. And I think I've got everything there. So I've control clicked and selected those. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click and remove other columns, and this removes everything else that isn't selected. So that's narrowed our columns down now. My next step is to rename the columns. You know, you want proper column headers, no underscores or abbreviations. So let's start here. I always like to use camel case. Longitude, get the capital L on there. That's latitude. It's important to get these column headers named correctly, because when you pull them into tables or visualizations, this is what comes through. So if this doesn't have a meaningful name, it could say PF for police force, or we could have the underscore in. That will show in your visual. So you'll have a visual saying police PF by day of week. So it's not really meaningful. So try and get these as meaningful as possible as you go. I'm going to get rid of the underscore from accident severity. Date, capital D on date, day of the week. I might change it to weekday. And time, capital T. Okay, I mentioned, no, I haven't. Sorry, let me just go back. Stage 3 of my 4-stage process is to just check the data type. And you can do that by clicking this little icon in the top left-hand corner here, or you can change the type here. So if we click that, we can see that longitude is a decimal number, so is latitude. Police force is a whole number. Date is, in fact, date. You can match the symbol. Weekday is a number, and time is time. The thing about dates, sometimes it might pull in this format, as you can see here. It's common to get a format like that, and these will be proper times. That'll be 1:30, that'll be 3 a.m. If you can, split them out and just narrow this down to a date, to an actual date, because this takes up a heck of a lot of overhead in your dashboard, in your data model, sorry. So if you can, always split the date and the time, and make sure that this, if you're just going to use it for a date, just make sure it's a date. Going to replace that. So that's correct now. I'm happy with my data model for. I'm happy with what I've done in Power Query for the main fact table. Okay, any questions so far on Power Query? No. Okay, I've just clicked close and apply there in the top left-hand corner. I'll show you again in a moment because we need to do the processing for the dimension tables. What that's done, it's pulled in our fact table, just how we processed it. So everything's named correctly. We've got the correct formats, and we've got rid of any columns that we don't need. I'm going to do the same now for the dimension tables. They are Excel sheets. Here it is. These are the lookup tables that we're going to relate to the fact table. They're in a document called Data Guide, an Excel workbook called Data Guide. It's a little bit different from looking at a CSV. What I've done there, sorry, I've gone to Get Data again and click Excel workbook. So we're pulling an Excel workbook into Power Query. Select Data Guide. Because it's an Excel workbook, it will give you the number of sheets. You might have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. This one's only got the 1. So we can have a look at that in the preview, and we can see that this is going to need a little bit of work. We've got some rows at the top here. We've got repeated information here, and we also need to break this down into 3 separate tables for our 3 filters. So I'm going to pull that into Power Query by clicking Transform Data. In it comes. Okay. Very similar to what we did last time, with a few different process types, really. We're going to get rid of the information only starts on row number 8, so we need to get rid of these top rows. I'm going to click Remove Top Rows, and it will ask me for the number. So our information starts at row 8, so I'm going to remove 7 rows. Click OK. Again, that's added to our applied steps. Here we can go back and we can take that out if we want. We won't do that. Back to the 4-step process. Remove things that we don't need. That's not relevant to our filters, so I'm going to get rid of the table type. We need the field name to narrow down our filters. We need the label, and we need the code format as a whole number. No, just bear with me. Let's just cancel that step. let's get rid of note for one. Okay, so what I've done is I've got rid of the information that was at the top of the table, and I've removed the 2 columns that we don't need. I could go ahead and filter this down now for police force and save this as police force and then close and apply it to the data model. But we need to go through this process for the other 2 tables because it comes from the same information. So rather than create one for police force and then pull the information in again, I'm just going to call this part processed for now and leave it at that. And what I can do now is I can copy this in the queries pane here and I can paste it, and I'm going to call this police force. There we go. I'm going to apply a filter here on field name. As you can see, we've got severity, we've got days a week. It's a complete list of all of the filters is this. So we need to narrow it down to police force. There we go. That gives us 52 rows. We've got 3 columns. We don't actually need police force now. We don't need this column. We've used it as part of the process. We can get rid of it now, and it won't affect the final outcome because it's part of the applied steps. Let's change these names to something more meaningful, ID, and I'm going to call this police force. Police force. I'm going to OK that. Oh, yeah. Get that right. Oh. Go. So that's OK. We're happy with that now. I'm going to copy my part processed and I'm going to repeat that for severity and day of the week. So I'm going to call this query severity. I'm going to filter it on accident severity. There we go. I'm going to get rid of the first column. I'm going to change this to ID, and I'm going to call this column severity. Okay, that's another dimension table built. Final one now for day of the week. Copy and paste it. Week. Okay. I'm going to filter on day of the week. There we go. And change this to ID. Change this to reader. Get rid of the first column. Okay, that's our fact table created from raw data, and that's our 3-dimension tables created. I'm not going to get rid of this part process table yet because we might need more filters, so let's keep that. I'm going to click close and apply, and this will apply everything into the data model. Okay, as you can see, these tables are now here. We can click on this data icon and select a table, and it gives you a summary. I'm not going to go into a lot about these menus at the moment because we'll be doing a lot around that in the next session. I think we've got like 10 minutes left now. I want to focus a little bit on getting a visual in there and getting the data model working. So we will be learning about all of this stuff as we use it, but it'd be a bit boring if we did all that data work in the background and we didn't have anything to show for it. So we've pulled all this information in. We now need to relate it. So we click on this icon, which is the data model. What Power BI has attempted to do is have a go at choosing some relationships for us. It's looked at the ID. It's linked those 3 tables. These are actually dimension tables. They shouldn't be linked. So this is a relationship here. I'm going to delete it. Never trust what Power BI does. It might relate them to your fact table. It might suggest relationships, but always check them. So I'm going to delete this one as well. Get rid of that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to link the police force ID to the police force number in the fact table. If you remember, in the police force table, the Metropolitan Police are represented by number 1. In the police force dimension table, the ID is number 1. So what I've done there, I've linked the two IDs. It shows one to many. We've got one instance of each police force in the top table here, and we've got many occurrences in the table here. And this shows the way the data's flowing as well. It's flowing down into the from the filters into the fact table. These 3 tables are going to be filters. So I'm going to do the same thing with day of the week. Pull the ID onto weekday. Just check that. Again, they're both numbers, so we're fine. Just going to clear my throat and have a drink of water. Thank you. I'm going to do the same again for severity as well. So I'm going to drag the ID for severity onto the severity ID here. So what we've done there, we've built our data model. It's took about half an hour. It's a very simple data model, but you know, we had to go through that process. It's not been the most fun thing to do. We've not built any visualizations yet, but we've got this right. So I'm going to demonstrate how after that hard work's done, you can very quickly build visualizations now. We'll have 2 minutes looking at this, 5 minutes looking at this, and then we'll look for it. We'll have a recap, and then we'll chat about any questions and stuff. So I'm gonna use the longitude and latitude, and I'm gonna pull in a map visual. We'll be doing all this properly next week. We'll be building measures and things like that to do calculations on the fly. But I'm not going to build any measures now. I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how Power BI crashes on you. Bear with me. Okay. I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to... No, I don't even need to do that. Sorry about this. Power BI just crashed out on me. Typical. I'm going to pull the map visual back on. This is exactly the same as what I've just demonstrated. It's the one I created earlier. Thank God. And from the facts table, I'm going to, like I said, we'll be talking more about these visualizations. I'm just going to cobble something together quickly now. We can pull in the latitude and we can pull in the longitude. This map visual is, it requires long and lat. We can pull a legend for the severity, but it's not going to come from the fact table. It's going to come from the relationship. If we pull it from the fact table, it will give us numbers 1, 2, 3. But because we've built our relationship, we pull it from the dimension table, and it relates the numbers and gives us the values. So that's that linked up. We can see the relationships have worked. I'm going to pull in a slicer now. We'll be doing a lot of this next time. We'll be doing it properly next time. I'm going to pull a slicer onto the canvas. There we go. And I want to link the police force so that it will zoom into the area. And this will demonstrate the relationships working. So we're not going to pull it from the fact table because it'll give us a list of numbers. we're going to go to the related table and pull in police force. Okay, we've got a huge slicer here with 52 police forces. I'm going to click somewhere I know, Lancashire. There we go. So that relationship's working for Lancashire there, as you can see. It's we've sent the query. We've clicked something in the dimension table and it's filtered through to the fact table. And basically, that's the data model working for us. We can pull in day of the week. We can build a quick metric here. Like we'll be building a quick visual here, like we'll be building next week for day of the week. Weekday, I'm going to pull that into the legend, and we haven't got a measure. We're going to build a measure. I mentioned building measures. We haven't got one at the minute, so I'm just going to pull in the number of oh, we have got a measure. I've built a measure on this one, so I'm going to use it, but I'll talk about measures next week. I'm going to pull that into values, and that's not how I expected it because I've put it in legend. I've put weekday in legends, so I'm going to put that into axes there. And as you can see, the relationship works when we click Monday, for example. Quick tip that I always do when I'm building visuals, I pull them to a table first. I always create a table visual, and if I was to pull in weekday, you know that there's 7 days of the week. You could put a total on the bottom here, so you can visualize and you can sum how much you've got. It's great when you've got lots of information. For example, if I was to pull in the number of incidents, it would total the same as in the spreadsheet or what we've optimized it to. So you'd know that your data is correct, and then you would then I tend to turn it into the chart. So I've created a table, so it's given me a count for Lancashire. If I take Lancashire off, it gives me a count for everything. That's that measure working. We'll build that next week. But as you can see, it's giving me the right data, and then you can change it into a chart. And he's got that wrong. I'm going to change this one into a chart. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. How was that, everyone? I think we've covered quite a bit. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll be doing more of the fun stuff next week. It's not the sexiest topic, is it, pulling data in and modeling it? But next week I do plan to build this thing and have a bit of a deep dive into, you know, some of the visuals. We'll build this pop out here and get the filters working. That'll be fun because I never get that right. But because they're a bit fiddly, those are called bookmarks. They're a little bit fiddly. But we'll have a look at those, and we'll build this measure and things like that.